Dropping a character into the place of another is a popular and fun way to look at different hypothetical battles in Naruto. With how large the cast of Naruto is, and how many different fights take place, it's one of the best series to do this for. One character swap I've seen almost nobody talk about, but I think is interesting, is Bee and Naruto swapping Akatsuki fights. Meaning Bee fights Pain instead of Kisame, and Naruto fights Kisame instead of Pain. Obviously this video is going over the Bee versus Pain scenario, but I will make a part 2 of sorts where I cover the Naruto versus Kisame scenario. Also, before I start my rambling, I always appreciate y'all liking and subscribing. I put out videos like this weekly, so you'll have plenty of content from me in the future. So, to quickly set some stipulations for this is going to be the Bee that fought Kisame versus the 6 paths of Pain, and we're going to be ignoring any outside help. As for the win conditions, Killer Bees is just to kill or disable all 6 paths of Pain. I know Nagato would still be alive, but we're going to just ignore Nagato. This also means he can't seek out Nagato and kill him somehow. For Pain, it will be to capture or kill Bee, and that leads into that this fight will have 2 rounds. For the first round, both will be in character, meaning Bee might not fight seriously from the start, and Pain will not be trying to kill Bee as he's trying to restrain him. For the second round, both will go all out. Bee will be fully serious and Pain will be willing to kill. As per usual in my videos, I'm going to cover both fighters' physical stats first. Starting with physical strength, despite not really being Pain's thing and being weakened, he was still able to contend with Sage Naruto. Sage Naruto really only overpowered Pain when using his jutsu, and hand to hand they seem comparable. The Diva path was able to block a kick from Sage Naruto, and the Preta path was able to physically restrain Sage Naruto. As I said, Pain was weakened here, but in terms of his physicality, he doesn't really show anything better than fighting Sage Naruto here. As for Killer Bee seems comparable to the Raikage. V1B and V1A perform the double lariat, which is supposed to require equal force. A at this point is still holding back his lariat, but he is holding back by being in V1. Even just being as strong as V1 Raikage on its own is incredibly impressive for B. The V1 Raikage can hurt KCM1 Naruto, and KCM1 Naruto is confirmed stronger than the Pain fight Naruto. Naruto specifically says that he's a lot stronger than when he fought Pain, and as we previously said, Pain's best physical showings are being around the level of Sage Naruto, and B was able to do all of this in only V1. His V2 cloak and full transformation should be stronger. All this to say, B should be physically stronger than Pain and should be able to destroy Pains by landing his physical attacks. But as I said, Pain isn't really a physical fighter, so this isn't the most relevant. What's really going to be more relevant is the abilities and speed of the fighters. So to round out physical stats, I'm going to cover speed now. I'll start with B this time since I started with Pain last time. V1B also scales to the Raikage here based on their double lariat, so the exact same idea of being as fast as KCM1, who should be above Sage Naruto, who's comparable to Pain, still applies here. Similarly to with his physical strength, we just see that Sage Naruto is able to keep up with Pain in speed on multiple occasions, and again, Pain was weakened, but he's never shown anything better than this, so there's nothing to say he's much faster than this. However, this only applies to V1B and up. Base B is lacking in speed. Takasasuke was keeping up with base B, and while B was likely holding back here, he doesn't really show much better. The only other thing he does in his base state is fight Kisame, but how fast Kisame is also kind of vague. Thus, there's not really much proof that B would be as fast or faster than Pain in his base state, but V1B should still be faster than Pain. This would then of course also apply to his V2 and full transformation, as they should just be stronger than his V1 state. So to recap and wrap up physical stats, this would mean that B is faster and stronger than Pain in his V1 form and up, but in base there's not really proof of either of this. But as I was kind of saying, Pain isn't much of a physical fighter, so we really need to go over abilities to explain how this fight would go. I'll start with B's abilities just because he's a lot more brief to go over. Most of his jutsu are just physical attacks that let him hit hard in different ways, so there's not much interaction to talk about. He has lightning release that he can use like a Chidori blade, and it is confirmed in the databook he has a lightning cloak of sorts, but it's not really the same as the Raikage's obviously. His most relevant jutsu would be his Biju bombs when he's in full transformation. This is just a massive AoE attack, and could be very helpful to hit all passive Pain at once. He also does have things like sealing, but he only used that because there was Edo Tenseis that he couldn't kill normally, so I doubt he'd resort to using sealing in this fight. Thus, I think really the only relevant things for B are his Biju bombs and his lightning release. And even the lightning release I don't think will be pivotal, as he doesn't use it once he enters his Bijuu cloaks, which is where he'll really need to go if he wants to fight Pain. Now, moving on to Pain. Pain has a plethora of abilities, so I only want to try to cover the relevant ones. I could go on all day about all his abilities, but the main ones I think we need to cover would be Shinra Tensei, Chibaku Tensei, Soul Rip, Chakra and Jutsu Absorb, and the King of Hell. I'll now briefly go over why I don't think the other abilities are all that relevant. I think the Animal Path's only real use to this fight would be to create diversions and just put more things on the battlefield for B to deal with. Other than that, the summons are just too weak to really do much to B. Sage Naruto absolutely destroyed the summons, literally tossing one into the sky and just Rasenganing two others, and B should be stronger than this Naruto. Especially if he fully manifests Yuki, where he'd be bigger than these summons, I really just think they'd be useless. The Asura Path may also be useful in terms of just adding bodies on the field, but the Asura Path doesn't really have any special abilities worth going over, as his abilities are just various physical attacks. There's not really anything specific to go over in terms of how we'd interact with B. Now, moving on to the actual relevant abilities, I'm going to start with the least directly combat related one, that being the King of Hell. Pain can use this to revive other paths of Pain that have been taken out, and we see Pain put this to great use against Naruto. It forced Naruto to take out certain paths multiple times and caused him to target the King of Hell specifically. Pain could also do this against B, reviving paths he takes out, so B would likely make it a top priority to kill this path once he realizes what it's doing. Now, moving on to more directly combat related abilities, Pain's ability to rip out your soul is incredibly powerful and is an instant win if he pulls it off. The actual removing of the soul, however, does take some time, and he doesn't just touch you and instantly remove it. It also does require Pain to get in close range. Chakra Absorb can also be used defensively by Pain, and it's similar to the Soul Rip in some ways. It requires physical touch, or at the very least getting very close, and is a sustained process over time. But this ability is seemingly even slower than the Soul Rip, and because B has massive chakra, it may take a while to absorb a relevant amount of chakra. However, where this jutsu is much more helpful is as jutsu absorption. Pain can absorb all jutsu with this, according to the databook, and he can even absorb projectiles mid-flight, as seen with Naruto's Rasen Shuriken. I'll go over the particulars later of how Pain will use this against B, but I don't think he'll be using it directly offensively very much, and it will mainly be used for its jutsu absorption. Now to cover what I think are Pain's best offensive tools, Shinra Tensei and Chibaku Tensei. Starting with Shinra Tensei, this allows Pain to use a repelling force to push his opponent away. This repelling force is so strong that Sage Naruto considered it impossible to get around, and thought he needed Genjutsu from Manpa to have a chance of beating Pain. And all of this is only discussing Pain's normal Shinra Tensei. He can amplify his Shinra Tensei further to use the chaotic Shinra Tensei, which he used to blow away the Leaf Village. The thing about this Shinra Tensei is while it is stronger, we don't know exactly how strong because he doesn't actually use it on anybody. He just blows up the Leaf Village with it. The only thing we know for certain is that it's stronger and the range is greatly increased. The other thing about this jutsu is that it leaves Pain vulnerable afterwards. When Pain used chaotic Shinra Tensei to blow up the Leaf Village, his Shinra Tensei was disabled for some period of time, and the other paths of Pain briefly shut down. Pain also had to move the other paths away from the Leaf Village, supposedly so he didn't blow them up with his own Shinra Tensei, so using this against B will be very difficult. And then we have what is undoubtedly Pain's strongest jutsu, the Chibaku Tensei. This jutsu creates a gravity well that draws in and seals the opponent, crushing them in a mass of earth. It can be broken out of by sheer force, but I'll go over how it would interact with B when discussing the fight later. With that said, I've laid out all of the relevant abilities and went over both fighters' stats in relation to one another, so it is time to now break down how the fights would actually play out. I'm going to start with round 1 where they are both in character. With both fighting in character, both will have certain limitations put on them. B will likely not be taking the fight super serious starting out. We see when Sasuke and the rest of Taka approached B, they directly said they're there to capture B, and even mentions the Akatsuki directly by name, which B should be well aware of. Despite this, B still stops mid-fight to write rhymes, and B waits to use the V1 cloak, and never once uses the V2 cloak throughout the entire fight. There's no reason B should directly know who Pain is, so he will likely start off unserious against Pain, similar to how he did against Sasuke. As for Pain will be unwilling to kill B here as he's trying to capture B to get his Biju. This means he'll be unwilling to use things like Soul Rip, which are instant death for B, but he still might be willing to use Chibaku Tensei as a last resort, as that is a stealing type of jutsu. The biggest problem holding back may cause B in this fight would be getting hit with a one-shot attack while he's suppressed, like the Soul Rip. The issue is Pain isn't willing to use this in this round because he's not trying to kill B, and Pain won't use Chibaku Tensei until he starts to get pushed to use it, so he likely won't use it on a suppressed B, meaning B holding back initially won't actually be super relevant. If he begins to struggle, he'll just start to go all out. As I explained earlier in the video, B when serious is faster and stronger than Pain. Thus, Pain will need to rely on his abilities to try to make up the difference. The best tools Pain has to potentially do this are his Shinra Tensei and Chibaku Tensei, but of course I'll briefly talk about the other abilities and why I don't think they would work. Chakra Absorb only works when keeping the opponent restrained so you can continuously pull chakra from them. We see Pain employ this against Naruto when he restrains Naruto so he can continuously pull chakra out of Naruto. The issue with this is that B should be able to escape Pain's grasp if he needs to, especially if he fully manifests into Gyuki. There's no way Pain should be able to keep something that massive restrained, so he could easily break out of Pain's grasp by just transforming. The only relevance Chakra Absorb will have to this fight will be Pain's ability to negate jutsu with it. Now moving on to Pain's Shinra Tensei. The big question here is if B can overpower normal Shinra Tensei. What I mean by that is we see that Six Tails Naruto was able to overpower and actually reflect Pain's Shinra Tensei back at him. This does tell us it's possible to do this to Pain if you're strong enough, but we don't know if B is strong enough to do this specifically. B is stronger than KCM1 Naruto, and KCM1 Naruto did say he was stronger than when he fought Pain, but Naruto doesn't actually have memories of the Six Tails Rampage, thus the statement probably doesn't include Six Tails Naruto and is only in reference to Sage Mode Naruto. So we do know Pain's Shinra Tensei has an upper limit of people it can affect, but the issue is the only person that ever resisted it, we don't know if B is stronger than. What we can say though is that the strongest person a normal Shinra Tensei ever worked on was Sage Naruto, and B should be massively stronger than Sage Naruto. V1B is already stronger than Naruto, and he has his V2 form and his full transformation. Basically, what I'm trying to get at here is there's not really a way to directly show that B can resist Shinra Tensei, but there's also no way to prove that Pain can affect a full power B with it. B is much stronger than the strongest person it's ever affected, and we do know that there is an upper limit. I think what we can say at the very least is B won't be damaged by Shinra Tensei, as Sage Naruto wasn't really hurt by Shinra Tensei, only pushed back. Now, this was only covering the normal Shinra Tensei, so I have to now go into the chaotic Shinra Tensei. As I explained earlier, this is kind of just a powered up Shinra Tensei, and we're not really sure how much stronger it is exactly. There's no way to prove the chaotic Shinra Tensei would kill B in one shot, especially when he's in full transformation. On top of this, if B survives the chaotic Shinra Tensei, Pain will be incredibly vulnerable after this, and all Pain bodies but the Diva Path will be shut down, meaning that B will probably be able to get a win if Pain doesn't immediately kill him with this. Now, all that being said, I don't actually think the chaotic Shinra Tensei will ever be pulled out in this fight. Reason being, Pain used it as a way to blow up the Leaf Village. He didn't actually use it on an opponent, and if Pain needs a big attack against B, he has a much better one, that being the Chibaku Tensei. Now, to explain the Chibaku Tensei, this might be the biggest question mark of the entire battle. B does interact with the Chibaku Tensei during the war, but it was a stronger B, and it was against Nagato who's stronger than Pain. Thus, it doesn't tell us much about pre-war B in Pain himself. Only thing we can say is B didn't figure out the weakness of attacking the gravity well. Itachi was the one that came up with that plan and told B to attack it. Thus, B likely won't figure out this weakness if it's used against him in this fight. Now, even without this strategy of attacking the gravity well, you can still break free of Chibaku Tensei by just physically busting out of it. We see Naruto do this when Pain tries to use Chibaku Tensei on him, but it did take 8 Tails Naruto to do this. We don't exactly know how strong this Naruto is, so he's not definitively stronger than B, but we do know that 9 Tails is the strongest Biju by far, and this is a near full manifestation of it. So it's likely to say B can't break out the same way Naruto did during the Pain fight. Meaning, Chibaku Tensei is a way for Pain to win if he can pull it off. But remember, he only uses this as an absolute last resort. Now, despite B not having a way to counter Chibaku Tensei if it's used, he does have a counter of sorts, and it's just to kill Pain before he uses it. Thus, I need to go into B now to explain if he's able to pull the strategy off against Pain and avoid being sealed by the Chibaku Tensei. Unlike Pain, who has various unusual techniques and needs to rely on his abilities to keep up, B has a much more direct path to fighting Pain. Once he's serious, there's nothing stopping Pain from just destroying the paths with his physical attacks. He's faster and stronger than every path, and the only counter to him doing something like this would be Shinra Tensei. The thing about this is that Shinra Tensei can only be used by the Diva path, so this means every other path would just be destroyed by B's physical attacks and wouldn't have anything to do about it. If Pain is left with only the Diva path, he will almost undoubtedly try to use the Chibaku Tensei as his last resort. The biggest issue with using the Chibaku Tensei is it requires Pain to unengage and run closer to Nagato in order to have enough chakra to use it. While he's doing this, B is much faster and stronger, so B might be able to just run up and destroy him. But even if you think he can't do this because of Shinra Tensei or Pain is somehow fast enough, B can fully transform and just use a Biju Bomb, which the only counter Pain would normally have would be the Jutsu Absorb, but in this scenario, all the other paths are dead, so he would have no way to deal with the Biju Bomb. With just how superior B's overall stats are, and his access to incredibly powerful ranged attacks via the Biju Bombs, it's unlikely Pain would ever even get to use the Chibaku Tensei. The only way Chibaku Tensei works is an out-of-character Pain where he just uses it off-rip. But again, this first battle is in character. Thus, B would win this first round just with his far superior stats and ability to counter Pain's techniques. Now moving on to the second round, this would be both fully trying to kill their opponent, so Pain is not worried about capturing B and is willing to kill, and B won't start off the fight unserious. The biggest change here is B will be willing to transform into Gyuki immediately, and Pain is willing to use the Soul Rip as well as use Chibaku Tensei early in the fight. Other than that, everything laid out about stats remains exactly the same. To quickly get the Soul Rip out of the way, even with Pain being willing to use this, I don't think it'll be relevant to the fight. It requires Pain to touch his opponent for a short period of time, and B is much faster and stronger, as well as won't be joking around this time, so there's not a chance of him getting caught while he's suppressed. The only change here that's really relevant is the Chibaku Tensei, and this entire battle really comes down to if Pain can pull it off before he dies. To use Chibaku Tensei, Pain is required to focus power into the Diva path, and it's only ever done with the other 5 paths dead. Even with this, he had to move the Diva path closer to Nagato. We also see with the Chaotic Shinra Tensei, it caused the other paths to shut down briefly. Thus, the use of the Chibaku Tensei likely requires all other paths to be dead or to be shut down similar to the Chaotic Shinra Tensei. This would then leave the Diva path in the same position he was in the last round, where the Preta path can't absorb Biju Bombs for him, so he has no defense against them. However, without Chibaku Tensei, Pain has no way to win, so Pain is stuck in an unwinnable scenario of sorts, where if he doesn't shut down the paths, he can't use his only win con, but if he does, he gets blasted away by a Biju Bomb. B once again takes this round with the insane power differential, and nothing really changing about the fight. In fact, this round would probably just be worse, as there's no chance of B being caught up in any nonsense while he's joking around.